Michael Bennett leaned back in his ergonomic office chair, the amber hues of the setting sun bathing his meticulously organized desk. The floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office offered a breathtaking view of Seattle's skyline, a city humming with life and ambition. Reflected in the glass was the image of a man who, at 37, appeared to have built a life of stability and success. Michael was a renowned architect, celebrated for his bold designs that transformed cityscapes into works of art. He was a respected mentor, a sought-after leader in his firm, and, to all appearances, a man who had achieved the American dream. His home life mirrored his professional triumphs. A charming house in a picturesque suburb, a 13-year marriage to his high school sweetheart, Laura, and a reputation as a devoted husband. But as Michael stared at the skyline, a flicker of unease stirred within him. Beneath the surface of his meticulously crafted life, cracks were beginning to form. Laura, 36, had been his steadfast partner through every step of his journey. She was there when his ideas were scribbles on napkins, cheering him on as he doubted himself. Together, they built a life rooted in shared dreams and unwavering support. Laura had always been his greatest champion, pushing him to take risks that shaped his career. Recently, however, Laura had become distant. Her lively, warm personality had dulled, and the laughter that once filled their evenings had grown scarce. Over the past few months, her book club gatherings had become more frequent, sometimes stretching late into the night. While Michael had always trusted her, subtle shifts in her behavior planted seeds of doubt he couldn't ignore. The first crack in their seamless life appeared 2 weeks ago. Michael, searching for a misplaced scarf in Laura's car, stumbled upon a receipt from the upscale Bellevue Crown Hotel, a place they had discussed visiting for special occasions but never had. The receipt's date matched one of Laura's book club nights, and the amount was far too extravagant for a casual outing with friends. When he brought it up, Laura brushed it off with a laugh. "Oh, that? We decided to treat ourselves for once," she said, her voice light, but her explanation was hurried, her smile not reaching her eyes. Michael nodded, forcing a smile, but his mind churned. Laura had never been one to splurge impulsively, and her hesitance didn't go unnoticed. That weekend, Michael drove to their favorite lakeside retreat, a secluded spot they had discovered during their first year of marriage. The lake, with its glassy surface and serene atmosphere, had been their sanctuary, a place where they dreamed big and planned their future. But as Michael sat alone, the once comforting silence now felt oppressive. He blamed his growing unease on stress from work and Laura's community commitments, yet the image of the receipt lingered, gnawing at him. The lake, once a reflection of their unity, now mirrored his uncertainty. Michael's restlessness only grew in the days that followed. At work, his focus wavered. The blueprints that once excited him blurred into meaningless lines as his thoughts wandered back to Laura. He replayed their conversations, searching for signs he might have missed. Was she truly just busy, or was there something deeper she wasn't telling him? The moment that solidified his suspicions came on a rainy Thursday evening. Michael sat in his office, finalizing a presentation, when Laura called to say her book club would run late again. Her tone was casual, but her words carried an unfamiliar edge of detachment. After they hung up, Michael found himself staring at the GPS tracking app they had installed years ago for safety. He hesitated, then tapped her name. Her location wasn't at a friend's house or the library, as she had said. It was at the Bellevue Crown Hotel again. His stomach knotted. The coincidence felt too deliberate to ignore. But instead of rushing to confront her, Michael decided he needed more than gut instincts. He had to be sure. The following evening, Michael observed Laura as she prepared for her latest book club meeting. She wore a sleek burgundy dress, one he hadn't seen before, and applied her makeup with a precision that felt out of place for casual drinks with friends. Watching her, Michael's mind raced. He forced himself to smile as she kissed him goodbye and walked out the door. Instead of heading to bed as usual, Michael grabbed his car keys and followed her. Keeping a safe distance, he trailed her sedan through the city's winding streets until it pulled into the well-lit driveway of the Bellevue Crown Hotel. From the shadows of a nearby parking spot, Michael watched Laura step out of her car and approached the entrance. She wasn't alone. A tall man in his early 30s greeted her. His confident stance and tailored suit hinted at success, but what caught Michael's attention was the easy familiarity between them. Laura smiled, radiant and animated in a way Michael hadn't seen in months. The man opened the door for her, and they disappeared into the hotel lobby together. Michael's chest tightened, his grip on the steering wheel white-knuckled. He sat frozen for a moment, battling the urge to storm into the hotel. But something held him back, a mix of pride and the realization that he needed more than an emotional outburst to confront the situation. Instead, he reached for his phone and began snapping photos of the pair. Laura's laughter, her elegant dress, the man's hand on her back, each image cut deeper, but Michael forced himself to capture them all. Michael drove aimlessly through the city streets, the images of Laura and the mysterious man replaying in his mind. The quiet of his car was drowned out by the storm of questions swirling in his head. Who was this man? How long had this been going on? And why? He found himself at a quiet corner bar where he and his best friend, David, had shared many late-night conversations over the years. Tonight, though, there was no laughter. Michael slid into a booth, his face etched with exhaustion and betrayal. David spotted him almost immediately, his jovial demeanor replaced with concern as he approached. "You look like you've been through hell," David said, sitting across from him. "What's going on?" Michael reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and handed it to David. The photos he had taken outside the hotel filled the screen. David's face darkened as he swiped through them. "This is bad," David muttered. "Who's the guy?" "That's what I don't know," Michael replied, his voice taut. "But it's not just about him. It's about her. She's been lying to me." David nodded thoughtfully, his expression shifting from shock to determination. "You can't react emotionally right now. You need to stay level-headed and strategic. If this is what it looks like, you're going to need proof, real, undeniable proof." Michael leaned back, rubbing his temples. "I feel like I'm losing my grip on everything. The woman I trusted more than anyone is sneaking off to hotels with a stranger, and I'm just sitting here taking pictures." David placed a firm hand on Michael's shoulder. "We'll figure this out, but you have to keep your head clear. Let's find out who this guy is before you confront Laura. You don't want her spinning this into something it's not." The next day, Michael reached out to a private investigator recommended by David. "This is Connor Hayes Investigations," a calm, professional voice answered. "Mr. Hayes, my name is Michael Bennett. I need help uncovering the truth about someone my wife has been seeing." Connor met with Michael the following morning at a modest office near downtown. Michael laid everything out, the photos, the GPS logs, and the growing list of inconsistencies in Laura's stories. "I need to know everything," Michael said, his voice firm. "Not just about her, but about him too." Connor nodded. "Leave it to me. I'll start digging. You'll have answers soon." For the next few days, Michael threw himself into his work, desperate for a distraction. But even the familiar comfort of drafting blueprints couldn't keep his thoughts from straying to Laura and her double life. Each evening, he checked his phone for updates from Connor. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the call came. "Mr. Bennett, I think you want to come in for this," Connor said. Michael arrived at the investigator's office, his nerves frayed. Connor slid a thick dossier across the desk. "The man your wife's been meeting is Tyler Morgan," he began. "He's 33, a project manager at your firm." Michael's stomach dropped. "He works with me." Connor nodded gravely. "Yes, and it doesn't end there. He's been involved in questionable financial activities, embezzlement, to be exact. At his previous firm, he orchestrated a similar scheme, though the blame fell on someone else. Now, it looks like he's using his relationship with Laura to deflect attention from his actions at your company." Michael flipped through the pages, his anger mounting. The dossier included emails between Tyler and Laura, financial discrepancies tied to Tyler's name, and a detailed timeline of their meetings. "He's not just after your wife," Connor continued. "He's after your career." Michael left Connor's office, the weight of the dossier heavy in his hands and on his heart. The betrayal was deeper than he had imagined. Tyler wasn't just an interloper in his marriage, he was a threat to Michael's professional life and reputation. But instead of succumbing to rage, Michael resolved to follow David's advice. Stay strategic. The next morning, Michael scheduled a private meeting with his firm's HR director, Sharon. In her office, he laid out the evidence Connor had uncovered, from the embezzlement to Tyler's inappropriate relationship with Laura. Sharon's face grew pale as she scanned the documents. "This is serious," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "If what you're showing me is accurate, Tyler's actions could put the firm at significant legal and financial risk." Michael nodded. "I don't want this to spiral into public drama. At least not yet. Let him think he's still in control. We need to catch him in the act." Sharon agreed to keep the matter confidential, promising to quietly monitor Tyler's activities while gathering additional evidence. With that piece in motion, Michael turned his attention to Laura. He needed her to believe that he was oblivious, that their marriage was still on steady ground. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but he knew it was necessary for what came next. The opportunity to set his plan into motion came unexpectedly. Laura had been spending more time away from home, and one evening she casually mentioned a charity gala she planned to attend with friends. Michael pretended not to notice her lack of detail. "That sounds great," he said with a smile. "It's been a while since we've done something like that together. I'd love to join you." Laura's face flickered with hesitation, but she quickly recovered. "Of course," she said. "It'll be nice to have you there." Michael knew she was lying. That wasn't the real plan for her evening, and he was determined to find out what was. The night of the so-called charity gala arrived, and Laura dressed with her usual precision. Michael watched her apply the final touches of her makeup, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside him. "You look stunning," he said, his voice steady. "Thanks," she replied, avoiding his gaze. As she left the house, Michael waited a few minutes before grabbing his car keys. This time, he wouldn't be content to stay in the shadows. He followed her to the Bellevue Crown Hotel, parking discreetly and watching as she stepped out of her car. Just as before, Tyler was waiting for her. They exchanged warm smiles before heading inside together. Michael entered the hotel a few minutes later, keeping a safe distance. He spotted them in the lounge, seated at a secluded table. Their body language was intimate, Tyler's hand resting lightly on Laura's arm as she leaned in to speak. Michael's phone buzzed in his pocket. It was Connor. "I'm here," Connor said. "Are you ready to proceed?" Michael hesitated, his emotions warring with his resolve. But then he thought of the lies, the betrayal, and the risks Tyler posed to his career. "Let's do this." Connor emerged from the shadows, his presence unnoticed by Laura and Tyler. With a nod from Michael, he began snapping photos and recording their conversation from a distance. The final piece of the puzzle was falling into place. The next day at work, Michael held his head high as he entered the firm's weekly leadership meeting. Tyler was there, as smug and self-assured as ever. But Michael had planned for this moment. As the meeting progressed, Michael requested the floor. "Before we continue, there's something I need to address," he began, his voice calm but firm. He connected his laptop to the room's projector, displaying a series of slides that sent shockwaves through the room. Emails detailing Tyler's embezzlement appeared on the screen, followed by photos of his clandestine meetings with Laura. The final slide showed financial discrepancies tied to Tyler's accounts. The room fell silent, then erupted into murmurs of disbelief. Tyler's face turned ashen as he tried to stammer out a defense. "Enough," Sharon said sharply. "Security will escort you out. Expect to hear from our legal team." As Tyler was dragged from the room, Michael glanced at the shocked faces around him. He felt no triumph, only a grim satisfaction that the truth had been exposed. Michael sat in his office later that afternoon, staring out the window as rain streaked across the glass. The storm outside mirrored the emotional turbulence within him. The confrontation at the firm had been necessary, but it came at a personal cost. Tyler was gone, but so was any illusion of trust he had once placed in Laura. That evening, as Michael arrived home, Laura was waiting for him. She looked pale, her hands clenched together as if bracing for a blow. "I heard what happened at your office," she began, her voice trembling. "Tyler called me, saying you humiliated him." "Michael, what is this about?" Michael didn't flinch. "This is about lies, Laura. His lies, your lies. I've known about everything, the hotel meetings, the emails, all of it." Laura froze, her eyes widening. "Michael, It's not what you think. Stop, he interrupted, his voice steady but cold. I gave you 13 years of trust, Laura. I deserved honesty, and you couldn't give me that. Tears filled her eyes, and she began to speak, but Michael held up a hand. I'm filing for divorce. I've already started the process. You'll hear from my lawyers soon. Laura collapsed into a chair, her sobs filling the room. Michael felt a pang of sadness, but also a strange sense of relief. He had mourned the end of their marriage long before this conversation. Now it was time to let go. In the weeks that followed, Michael focused on rebuilding his life. The divorce proceedings were swift, thanks to the irrefutable evidence Michael had gathered. Laura moved out of the house, leaving behind an emptiness that Michael slowly began to fill with new routines and connections. One such connection was Sarah Morgan, a talented architect in his firm's design department. Sarah, 35, was known for her innovative ideas and empathetic leadership style. She had always been a bright presence in the office, but it wasn't until they began collaborating on a new sustainable housing project that Michael truly appreciated her warmth and intelligence. One afternoon, as they reviewed plans in her office, Sarah hesitated, then said, "Michael, I heard about everything that happened. I just want you to know you're stronger than you think. And if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here." Michael smiled, the first genuine one he'd felt in a while. "Thank you, Sarah. That means more than you know." Their professional partnership soon evolved into a friendship. Sarah often invited Michael to join her for coffee or to brainstorm project ideas in her art-filled studio. Over time, those casual moments turned into something deeper. One weekend, Sarah suggested they take a break from work. "There's a place I want to show you," she said. She led him to a quiet lake on the city's outskirts, its surface shimmering in the late afternoon light. Michael stood at the water's edge, memories of his past visits to a similar lake with Laura flooding his mind. But this time, the pain was dulled, replaced by a quiet sense of peace. Sarah sat beside him, her presence calming. "You don't have to let your past define this place," she said gently. "It's yours to reclaim." Michael nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "Thank you, Sarah, for everything." As the sun dipped below the water, Michael realized he was ready to move forward, not just professionally, but personally as well. Months later, Michael and Sarah's sustainable housing project was recognized with a prestigious architectural award. During the ceremony, as Michael accepted the honor, he spoke with heartfelt sincerity. "This project isn't just about buildings," he said. "It's about resilience, about rebuilding lives, and creating something meaningful. I'm grateful to my team, and especially to Sarah, whose vision and dedication made this possible." The applause was deafening, but Michael's eyes sought Sarah in the audience. Her warm smile reminded him of the strength and hope he had found in her. One evening, as they walked along the same lake where they had first connected, Michael paused. "Sarah," he began, his voice steady but laced with emotion, "you've been my anchor through everything. You've shown me that even after the hardest storms, there's light. Will you build a future with me?" Sarah's eyes glistened with tears, her smile radiant. "Yes, Michael. 1,000 times yes." A week later, Michael returned to the lake alone, carrying a small wooden box filled with mementos of his past life with Laura. One by one, he placed the items into a small bonfire he had built near the water's edge. As the flames consumed them, he felt a profound sense of release. The lake, once a symbol of pain, now reflected tranquility. Michael stood at its edge, the future stretching out before him. He wasn't defined by his scars, but by the strength he had found to rise above them.